Thank you for the invitation. Tandem crisis, yes, that's what it is. You can imagine the societal metabolism, our global metabolism causes a too big global footprint. That's the basis for the biodiversity crisis, use of land, the destruction of space of living, and it causes the problem with the repository or the final storage, and that causes a problem for our atmosphere. These are two crises that are strongly linked to each other, and this is the introduction to my presentation. I'm ecologist, and biodiversity, the nature that surrounds us, is not a luxury. It is the green foundation of our society and of our economy, and of course of our financial market. I'd like to start with a small story. You can see here the world as it used to be. So these are beautiful pictures, cultural land, natural land, beautiful landscapes. We like to see this in tourism, but this is the past. Welcome to the Anthropocene. You can see the curves on the left all rise. This is not a reading test, so don't worry if you can't read this, but it characterizes our society. For example, global GDP, global water use, paper use, and so on. And these lines all steeply increase. In the last years, the world has experienced a fundamental change due to human beings. You can see here humans dominate the biosphere, and here you can see all the different big mammals on Earth in three categories. In the middle, we've got human beings, Homo sapiens, our species. That probably has grown during the lunch break. It's the people that live on Earth, but we are surrounded by cattle, for example, goats, sheep, pigs. Those are the light gray dots. And then we have a few green dots, and these are, for example, the elephants. That is one of the green dots that we can see here. So all the big wild mammals, are represented with the green dots on this image. It's less than 5% of all mammals on land today. So if you see a film of the Serengeti, then you can see an image of a museum that does not represent the biosphere that we are living today. And this leads to phenomena that we have seen before. We have boundaries on our planet, and we have surpassed 6 of our 9 planetary boundaries. One of this is biosphere integrity. It's the one that is the deep red, almost purple already. That's where we are in the biodiversity. It is severe. Climate change and others are following, of course. Why is that the case? Increasing pressure is coming up in small steps. So this is happening in small steps. You can see here farming a couple of decades ago, and now farming as it is right now. A lot has changed, but we, the people, almost don't perceive it because it's just little steps and it's normalized in our minds. Same in our climate change. We don't compare climate to climate 30 years ago, but the climate of last year. So if somebody says April was quite cool, then empirically it's not true. But it's not only land use, it's the economy beyond land use that has a global impact. Resources are used and we win resources somewhere else, then we use them. And these economic procedures contribute to the ecological footprint. We do understand that, and decision makers know this. They know what the challenges for the future are. Decision makers like you. Every year, the World Economic Forum creates the Global Risk Report. This is based on a survey among CEOs and so on. So in the next 2 years, so that's a legislative period, you can see here the different risks in different areas. In green, you can see environmental risks. But if you take a look at the 10-year risk outlook for business models, for politics, etc., and there the first 4 risks are environment related, and then we have other risks. These are people who can understand global contexts, global synergies, and it shows that in general or fundamentally they're ready or able to see the risk of the economy that is posed in front of us. Climate change is one of the factors that strengthens the biodiversity challenge or crisis. I don't think I need to show you the challenge of the climate change. You can see here a heat map from 1900 to 2018. Every year in the last couple of years, it was very much hotter than the years before in the 20th century. And this trend was reinforced in the last couple of years. And this has an effect that affects the economy. In this forest, we've got a lot of dead wood. We love dead wood as ecologists because a lot of people can live there, and if you own this forest, you don't want this forest because this is not something you can make use of. And the trees, the spruce in Austria are under stress today because it's too dry. So here you can see where the spruce will not have a future, the red dots on the map of Austria. You can see that in whole Middle Europe, and spruce is under a lot of pressure at the moment because of the bark beetle. It puts spruce under stress. In a dry summer, it has too little water, and then it cannot counteract the bark beetle, and therefore it can extend the effect of the bark beetle was extended. So the forest is now a source of CO2 emissions because too many trees die, more trees die than can grow, and that has a lot of effects. For example, as well on the living conditions in some areas. For example, this is Carinthia. Here you can see the farm where I grew up in Upper Austria in 1990. I was very young back then. We had 10 couples of swallows that we had, so 10 swallows, and now we have 2. So in the last 30 years, more or less, there was a massive change. This might be a local phenomenon, but if you look at the data on birds for the entire country, you can see the farmland bird index. So the number of birds who have breeding pairs. So 25 years ago, so from 1998 to 2022, almost half of the population has disappeared. And 1998, we are not in the 1950s, where we can speak about extensive change. So there's an erosion, reduction of biodiversity in a lot of areas of our landscape. So this shows the problem. It shows you what is happening in the nature. But what does that have to do with economy? So something completely different of my presentation. Biodiversity and stable ecosystems are, so an intact natural habitat is the basis for our existence. What does that mean? We live on a planet with boundaries. We need to take care of this planet so that we can live here on the long run and have an economy here on the long run. Our mindset should look like this. The big goal is a biosphere. In this biosphere, so within this biosphere, we've got society and economy. So this is, the biosphere is the basis, and we have got society and economy within the biosphere. That's a mindset we usually don't have at the moment. Climate and natural policies, if that is something we cannot afford, if that's something that we say, then there's something that we don't understand. We don't understand the planetary boundaries, and we don't understand the biosphere as a basis for everything else. So this should be in the center and the focus of a long-term policy. The Green Deal would be something like that. It recognizes this mindset, and the European Union, a national government, all decision makers need to take these goals seriously into account and implement them. This leads to conflicts of interest. It leads to discussions, debates. That's part of politics. It requires negotiations, but this goal and this perception, and especially this mindset, is not something that we should lose. It's something that we should keep and that we should focus on. So here you can see the costs of non-action, of inaction. Shows you what it would cost to be inactive. So between 1 and 1.5 degrees, where we stand today, and 3 degrees of temperature rise, the difference is 7% of global GDPs. Through catastrophes, through dying forests, and I haven't even taken into account human damages on human and rising sea levels. So we can imagine how this can affect society, and we can imagine how it could affect politics. So it's in our interest to discuss these questions and to understand the impact of these crises. If we think about greenhouse gas emissions, we think about cars, we think about heating systems, but 1/4 of all greenhouse gas emissions come from the destruction of nature. So when forests die, when forests through deforestation, if land is used inappropriately, then greenhouse gases are released. You can see that, for example, in if there are wildfires. But for example, if more is dried, then a lot of greenhouse gases are released into the atmosphere, and that's something you do not perceive and you do not see. Therefore, climate politics and land use needs to be combined with agriculture and forestry. Moors are storages of carbon, actually. So if we dry them and use the turf, then you release the carbon. This causes CO2 emissions. About 10 to 20% of the traffic emissions in Germany. So this is a lot, and therefore the German ministry, the German government, so the former German government, has invested a part of the budget into the protection of moors, to have more, to have this CO2, this carbon storage protected, and to protect the natural habitats. So biodiversity, food security, all the other political agendas, they all are intertangled, and they all are linked to each other. On a political level, there is the Agreement of Montreal that was signed in 2022, and Austria, the European Union, almost all countries of the world have agreed to the following. I'll show you. It's like the golden standard of decision makers. And the reason for that is that we need ambitious goals in order to solve this crisis. So these are the most important goals. 30% of the global surface should be under protection. 30% of harmed ecosystems should be reestablished. Minus 50% of pesticides, etc., etc. These are big goals, and they influence policymakers and finance streams if they're implemented. And there I'm reaching the last point of my presentation. How about the implementation? Protection of nature and the regulation is often just perceived as a problem. And I agree that sometimes it really is, but sometimes we also need to see how much we spend on protecting nature. So Lower Austria is the biggest state in Austria, and according to the Lower Austria budget, 15 million per year are spent on protection of nature, and the same budget says that 450 million euro per year are spent on building streets and renovating streets and roads. So these are budgets that were decided years or decades ago. Nobody thinks about whether this still makes sense, or sometimes it is even... So Asfinag is the company that really finances the roads and the motorways in Austria, and it's not even taken into account in that budget. So we need to reconsider and rethink our budgets. This shows that we still have budgets in use that no longer correspond with what is actually needed and with what is wanted by the people. So savings are always made in climate protection and in protecting nature. The Economic Research Forum in Austria says that we have up to 5.6 billion climate harming subsidies per year. So what I want to say, it is not easy to implement these changes on a political level, because you're under pressure in politics, and in politics politics is about change, about fostering change, and that's how I want to end this presentation. Thank you.